The tampon king gets back in the ring. I speak of former VP nominee Tim Walz. He joined Beto O'Rourke at a Texas town hall last night, and the estrogen levels were enough to give Chuck Norris menstrual cramps. I wonder, is our strength our diversity?
Our strength is our diversity. We've been talking about this for years as a country of immigrants, and we let them define the issue on immigration. We let them define the issue on DNI.
But I'm thinking there's only one explanation for Tim spewing nonsense like this. Time of the month.
What happens when a smug TV host goes head-to-head with a governor who looks like he misplaced his car keys? You get Greg Gutfeld tearing into Tim Walz as if he were a cardboard cutout thrown into a storm. From failed policies to awkward political performances, Gutfeld turns Minnesota's leadership into a comedy act that feels more like a demolition derby than serious debate. Don't look away. This roast hits harder with every second, and Walz's already icy approval, numbers don't stand a chance.
Tim Walz continues to be criticized for embellishing his rank in service. After it came out over the weekend, he once claimed to be an official bikini inspector. Walz's direct superior in the National Guard says Walz knew his unit was about to deploy to Iraq and went behind the back of his superior officer to resign. When reached for comment, Walz yelled, "Hey, look over there," and then ran away. Although Walz's actions look bad to veterans, Dems say these revelations could really help him win the coward vote.
Oh, Tim Walz. If leadership was a buffet, he'd be the bland mashed potatoes no one wanted, but somehow ended up on the plate anyway. Flavorless, unasked for, and still sitting there. Then Greg Gutfeld walks in, firing sarcasm, like fireworks in a closed shop, slicing through Walz's mistakes with the force of a comedian on full throttle. This isn't leadership. It's stage performance gone wrong. More like finger painting with spoiled mayonnaise. Messy, pointless, and impossible to forget.
He exploited his military background to cover up his crime. He said it was related to his service and that he actually wasn't drunk. He just misheard the instructions in the drunk test. He blew a super high level. It was like, 0.2, driving 100 miles an hour. And then when he's running for office, he said that he wasn't drunk. I mean, this guy has creep written all over it. He created a snitch line, but lies about his personal infractions. He doesn't even own up to it. This is a guy who pushes a hoax about a sex on a couch. And then the closer you look at him, he's a creepy cuck.
If you're enjoying this takedown, don't forget to hit subscribe. Now let's be real. Tim Walz running Minnesota looks like a substitute teacher trying to control a class of hyper kids on energy drinks. He talks like a man who skimmed Leadership for Dummies and decided that was his manual for governing. And the results? Spot on. If the actual plan was to turn the land of 10,000 lakes into the land of 10,000 disasters.
Saw just recently Donald Trump's executive order to make it more difficult, specifically to women, trying to make it more difficult for women to be able to vote. We see one of the first things they do is try and restrict the vote.
Wait, so Trump is making it more difficult for women to vote? How so? Math problems? But it's further proof that the most dangerous thing for a leftist is a follow-up question, which is why you never hear any. But I guess questioning elections is okay now. But the best moment came when Walz forgot who he is.
Greg Gutfeld barely had to try. Roasting Tim Walz was like dunking on someone who showed up to a job interview wearing Crocs and a blindfold. Walz walked onto the stage as if his best weapons were a kazoo and a whiteboard scribbled with the word feelings. He basically handed Gutfeld the setup, begging for the roast. Gutfeld served it extra crispy, turning the debate into a contest of sarcasm. Walz, meanwhile, came equipped with nothing but glitter, glue, and a participation ribbon.
Walz is a strange dude.
Oh, he's strange.
He is strange. Him and I are the same age. How does he look so much younger?
No, he's a strange guy.
Strange.
He called up years ago. I was in the White House, and he said, "My house is being surrounded by people with American flags." I said, "Is that a good thing or a bad thing?" He said, "I think they're going to attack me." But this was during the riots and everything else. they were MAGA people. You know, they like the American flag, all right? And they also had Trump. And I said, how do you know? There were about 15,000. He said, could you put out a word like that I'm your friend? I don't even know him, but that's the only time I ever spoke to him. And if you look back long ago, tweets, before Truth, tweets, long ago, I put out a statement. He's a good man, the governor. He's on our side. I didn't know him, but I didn't want him to get hurt. And everybody put down their flags and they left. Yes. He said it was a miracle. He said it was a miracle.
Let's talk economy. Walz looked at inflation, unemployment, and businesses leaving the state, and thought the answer was more taxes. Tax the air, tax smiles, maybe even tax the thought of moving to South Dakota. Companies are fleeing Minnesota like it's a haunted house decorated with climate rules and social justice PowerPoints. Then Gutfeld ripped into Walz's economic record like a raccoon breaking into a trash bin. He practically shouted, "How do you make California look pro-business by comparison?" Because under Walz, the only things expanding are piles of government paperwork and the headaches of the middle class. Now, crime. Walz treats public safety the way a toddler treats matches. Hopeful, careless, and guaranteed to end in flames. His big plan? Blame society, hold hands, and wish criminals into changing through interpretive dance. It's like handing out candles in the middle of a raging fire.
On the same bad cocaine, but Kamala can't speak, he can't speak, Biden was so high he couldn't remember anything. Like, this is literally the dumbest administration of all time. Why is he talking?
It really is the ultimate clown show, and I said this in the pod. He's a clown without a circus.
He doesn't even need makeup.
He's roaming the terrain. Is there some carnival that I could work for? Yeah. I'll wash your windows.
He's a rogue clown.
Yes.
Who is just an inconsequential footnote to vice presidential history.
Yes.
No one will remember his name on trivia night, and that's going to be in 3 months.
Meanwhile, Gutfeld turns crime numbers into punchlines. He might as well hold up a Minnesota map with "Here be carjackings" printed across the Twin Cities. He compared Walz's crime strategy to a mall cop trying to stop a riot with a kazoo and a clipboard. If Walz ran national security, we'd all be brushing up on Russian within a week, and then education. What a mess. Walz, once a teacher, decided classrooms should become workshops in woke wordplay. Forget math and science. Students now earn grades for spotting microaggressions and building safe spaces out of popsicle sticks. Gutfeld went all in, saying the only subject kids are passing is Being Offended 101. Under Walz, schools look less like classrooms and more like open mic nights for bad political theater. Detention? Gone. Now it's replaced with participation trophies and TikTok therapy circles.
I'm especially talking about these old white guys who seem to disappoint us on a regular basis in this country.
Dude, you're an old white guy. And you're right, you are a huge disappointment. I guess hating himself is the first thing he's nailed correctly. Because Walz saying old white men suck isn't a political stance, it's his confession. Walz calling people old and white is like Maxine Waters making fun of someone for shopping at Wigs R Us. He wants to execute more DEI policies, and Trump wants to execute murderous gang members. So there you go, ladies and gentlemen. Can you see the difference?
And then came COVID. Walz treated the pandemic like it was his audition for America's next top authoritarian. Close everything. Drag bar owners to court. Fine churches. But protests? Oh, those were essential. Somehow, the virus had a political filter. Who knew? Gutfeld ripped into the hypocrisy, pointing out how Walz shut down Grandma's bingo night, but opened the streets wide for demonstrations, as long as there was a Marxist chant and a papier-mâché puppet in sight. That wasn't public health. It was political theater dressed up with a clipboard. Then came the budget surplus. Minnesota had a mountain of extra money so big even Walz couldn't ignore it. But instead of giving it back to the people who earned it, he spent it like Monopoly cash at a government yard sale. More agencies, more consultants, maybe even a taxpayer-funded mural of himself staring off into the distance.
I said Walz lost, but one of them, Politico says, it's like Walz's wide eyes showed his passion and emotional intensity. Can we show that? There is his wide eyes. That humans would widen their eyes to convey that danger is close. What emotion are you getting from that?
Sorry. That was every...
Gutfeld nearly fell over from the irony. He joked, "Walz blowing a surplus is like handing a toddler a credit card and telling him to stick to the essentials." Sure, Tim, because obviously, the Department of Overregulation really needed a fancy espresso machine and an executive yoga retreat in the name of equity. Walz has turned red tape into a contact sport. In Minnesota, you can't even run a lemonade stand without 14 permits, a background check, and a pronoun form. It's Soviet-style governance with slick branding and worse results. Gutfeld captured it perfectly. Walz twisting and stumbling through. Policy like he's auditioning for bureaucratic gymnastics. And then there's his obsession with Gavin Newsom. Walz clings to California's governor like a starstruck fan, trying to turn Minneapolis into San Francisco's colder, clumsier cousin.
Tim Walz vomits more nonsense.
I called Donald Trump a wannabe dictator. It's because he is. It's because he is. Maybe it's a dolt like Donald Trump. You bully the out of him back. This is a weak, cruel man that takes it out and punches down on people.
Wow. Oh. Jamie.
What a
Painful,
douchebag,
huh?
Greg. That was absolutely painful. He was the keynote speaker at this conference. Can you imagine having to watch more of that?
He watches Gavin Newsom burn down California with bad policies and thinks, great idea. Let's just add frostbite and higher taxes. It's the West Coast disaster, only performed in snow boots with fewer jobs. Gutfeld nailed it. If Gavin Newsom is a shampoo ad with the ego of a Bond villain, then Tim Walz is the understudy who wandered in halfway through and started improvising in pig Latin. Walz acts like the confused child of Bernie Sanders in a broken traffic light, posing as a progressive savior while fumbling every department he touches. And transportation? Don't even ask. He pitched a multi-million-dollar bullet train that might be ready when dinosaurs come back. Meanwhile, Minnesota's roads look like a Mario Kart track after an apocalypse, with drivers praying their cars survive. Walz, however, is too busy pushing fantasy trains like he's auditioning for Hogwarts, while real roads collapse around him.
So the tone of the media was one of sadness, not reporting Walz's loss, but mourning it. Now, the truth is that a VP debate is like a colonoscopy. It's important and necessary, but that doesn't mean you want to watch it.
Hong Kong and China during the democracy protests went in. And from that, I learned a lot of what needed to be in governance.
Even a deer in the headlights is screaming, "Get the out of the way, dude!" It's no wonder they don't do follow-up questions with Democrats. They're like the top layer of day-old skimpy bean dip. What's underneath?
Gutfeld rolled his eyes so hard they nearly scored on the Richter scale. His sarcasm deserved its own zip code. Brilliant plan, Tim. Throw common sense out the window and spend billions on an imaginary train. Slower than a DMV line and about as useful as a solar-powered flashlight in January, then came Walz's media appearances. Picture a man pretending to be a leader while speaking with the clarity of a dial-up modem underwater. He drones in endless circles, like a GPS permanently stuck on recalculating. Somewhere off stage, aides are waving flashcards and flares, begging him to make one clear point. Gutfeld shredded it like a drunk poet at open mic night. Watching Walz explain policy is like seeing a raccoon try Morse code with oven mitts. Chaotic, confusing, and convinced it worked.
Meanwhile, Kamala's VP, Tim Walz, is being accused of lying about his rank, which is called stolen valor. But in Walz's defense in Minneapolis, stealing is legal. But misrepresenting your past for political gain? I don't see that as a problem, said one woman.
When pressure rises, Walz doesn't just change direction. He pirouettes like a ballerina fueled by 5 Red Bulls and a subscription to The Atlantic. Ask him about crime and suddenly he's rambling about bike lanes fixing felonies. Bring up the economy, and he's off preaching about gender-neutral parking and the emotional stress of asphalt. This isn't leadership, it's interpretive policy theater, with TED Talks about feelings and slideshows on ukulele healing circles. Gutfeld put it best. Walz is basically a magic 8-ball in orthopedic shoes. Shake him, and you'll always get some nonsense about frameworks or equity gardening. And then there's the branding. Walz tries to play the farm dad role, but his version of roughing it is sipping almond milk without a paper straw. He's the guy who shows up to a tailgate with kombucha, asking if the brisket is locally sourced. Gutfeld roasted him, saying, "Walz is about as folksy as tofu at a monster truck rally. Nothing says man of the people like quoting Noam Chomsky in a fleece vest."
Video of the day, and he's got a very weird way of greeting his wife of 30 years. Roll it. I want to see this in slow motion. You'll see Walz extends his hand to his wife. She grabs it. They shake. He pulls her close and then goes in for that non-friction hug, all the while still shaking her hand. I wish there was a word to describe that. Oh, yeah, weird. I've seen warmer embraces between Chris Christie and a salad.
Minnesota's rural towns are crying out like someone stuck on hold trying to cancel dial-up in 2025. They wanted a leader who knew their lives, tractors, real work, maybe a church potluck. Instead, they got Tim Walz, a man who seems to think greater Minnesota starts at the edge of a bike lane and ends where the kombucha kegs run dry. This isn't governing. It's lifestyle branding with extra hashtags. He runs the state like he's live streaming a TED Talk, called Empathy Through Bureaucracy. Gutfeld's knockout punch? He crowned him the IKEA governor. Comes in a box, half the screws missing, assembly required. And by the end, you're crying over a wobbly mess, wondering if you've built a metaphor. And he was right. Walz treats policy like Pinterest boards, thinking hashtags, oat milk, and interpretive dance equal leadership. Gutfeld cut through it all. Every bloated bill, every word salad speech, every sanctimonious lecture. He broke it down with sarcasm sharp enough to slice steel, turning Walz's flavorless style of leadership into soggy oatmeal. The saddest part? Walz probably walked away thinking it was a TED Talk tribute. Minnesota deserves better than a group, project in khakis. And Gutfeld, with punchlines sharper than DMV pencils, reminded the nation. Behind that fleece vest and awkward grin is a governor reading expired IKEA instructions. Confused, unimpressive, and missing half the screws.